Okay, guys. Now we'll talk about some news. We'll talk about some news. Democrats, the Democrats are hitting deep, deep fear, deep trouble. They're running scared when they just start calling not just a news agency like CNN, but Kamala Harris held a 3-minute press conference to come out and call Trump Orange Hitler. It's bad when she's like, okay, we're going to have a press conference. Trump is Orange Hitler. He said he appreciates and loves the Hitler generals. And this is awful. He shouldn't be president. Thank you, everybody. And then she walks off stage. Like, oh my God, you're desperate. You are in such deep shit. It's just, and of course, she's not the only one. Let me play some of these clips for you. It's so bad. It is so bad. They are in so much deep trouble. Okay, so first, here's the steal. Here's the steal information. Maricopa County in Arizona is already warning it might take nearly 2 weeks to get election results. This is from Drew Hernandez. Yes, they're planning on stealing Arizona. Look, there are countries, India. India has, 658 million votes they counted. They did it in 24 hours. Taiwan has something like 60 million people. They did it in like the same night or the next night, 24 hours. When you have Maricopa just be patient, everybody. It's going to take a couple weeks. These ballots aren't going to print themselves. No wonder everybody thinks this stuff is rigged and stolen.
Anyway, very tight races here. In fact, Maricopa County is setting the stage that tabulating all these votes may not be an election night thing. It may take days.
Wow. Well, 12 News journalist Colleen Sikora explains that county leaders are asking voters for patience and to be prepared.
Tight races, high interest in the election, and a 2-page ballot are leaving Maricopa County officials warning of lines on Election Day, and also warning it's going to take them 10 to 13 days to tabulate results.
10 to 13 days. 2 weeks. Gee, why do people think 2020 was stolen? Why would they think 2020, when your trust in the system is gone, it's go time, baby.
2 pages and an average of 79 contests per ballot.
We are expecting heavy turnout this year, and so that's why we're really encouraging people to vote early.
2 weeks out from Election Day, and some votes are in.
More than 400,000 people have cast their ballot in Maricopa County.
So start counting them now. Start counting them now.
Out of an anticipated 2.1 million voter turnout this year.
We are seeing a little bit of a lag of where we were in 2020, but the last few days we've actually seen an uptick in turnout. So I am expecting that we will start approaching very close to those 2020 numbers.
What can impact the amount of results released and when? Early ballots dropped off on Election Day.
Our races will be close.
And on Election Day, lines are expected, even with an increase in vote centers and voting booths at those vote centers.
If you're going to vote on Election Day, vote in person and use that on-site tabulator so that those votes will be tabulated on that evening as opposed to dropping off your early ballot on Election Day.
The county adding more high-speed tabulators, more election workers.
We're increasing staffing at our ballot processing as well because, again, we're handling double the number of the sheets of paper. And so we are looking to both have extra shifts, night shifts, if necessary, in ballot processing, and then in the next step that takes place in election administration, and that's through tabulation.
But tabulation expected to take time.
We do expect that it will take between 10 and 13 days to...
This is unacceptable. This is just unacceptable. Florida has 24 million people. Texas, I don't know how many Texas has. They can all get it done overnight. Why is it? Notice that it's like, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, what other, all the swing states are like, well, it might take us a little bit of time. Isn't it? Oh, Pennsylvania is the other one. Isn't it ironic? It's always the swing states that it takes forever. They're just like, we're going to do it again. Just so you know, we're going to do it again. And you're going to know we did it again. But you're not going to be able to do anything about that we did it again. That's what it feels like, genuinely. So that's laying the groundwork. And then Walz, the guy that was a school teacher that loves China and perhaps also loved horses and very young men. Walz attacks Elon Musk for jumping around the stage like a dipshit. So the guy that comes out and he's like, hey, everybody, yeah, and he's shaking his hands and he's doing all this crazy stuff and he's like, Tim Walz is gay. That's my opinion. That's a very flamboyant man. He makes fun of Elon Musk for like getting excited and jumping around on stage a little bit. Oh, pot, meat kettle. Minnesota governor, I should have pulled up. You know what I should have pulled up? I should have pulled up a video of him coming out on stage and he's like so feminized and think about it. Minnesota governor, Democratic vice president nominee Tim Walz just attacked Musk. Think about it. Think about that. The guy's literally the richest man in the world, spending millions of dollars to help Donald Trump buy an election. So how's that different from Jeff Bezos? How's that different from George Soros? Same thing, except George Soros spends a hell of a lot more money. Here's the clip of it.
Jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it. Think about it. Think about that. That guy is literally the richest man in the world, spending millions of dollars to help Donald Trump buy an election. Now look, they're saying the quiet parts out loud now because Donald Trump has already promised that he would put Elon in charge of government regulations that oversee the businesses that Elon runs. That's a hell of a buy. He could spend billions to make more than 10 billion on the back end. So in other words, Donald Trump, in front of the eyes of the American public, is promising corruption. That's what he...
Last I checked, you can promise Elon Musk a position in the government, and that's not corruption. I mean, look at the lobbyists. Look at the people in power. It's not corruption if Obama writes a book and gets paid $40 million for it. Let's go a little easier there on the bullshit there, Timmy. He said the irony. Trending politics co-owner Colin Rugg posted on X, nothing that Walz himself is known for jumping around and flailing his arms on stage. Rugg continues, Walz lost his cool when ranting about how upset he was that a billionaire is helping Trump. Oh, yeah, and here's a picture right here. This is George Soros's kid. I forget his name. So you standing there and this guy, George Soros's kid, giving you millions and millions, that's fine. I'd say nothing to see here when Democrats do it. When Republicans do it, it's the end of democracy. If you think about it, right? If you think about it, you know my entire channel is dedicated to good masculinity and crapping on weak men and feminists, and the relentless attack on masculinity and feminization of men. But, you know, the truth is weak and feminized men are easily controlled. They make society vulnerable to manipulation and tyranny. We're bombarded with all these estrogenic chemicals from plastics and junk food and sedentary lifestyles. And the mainstream media, as you can see here, loves to demonize normal, straight, masculine men, calling us toxic. But today, that's where NMN comes in. Today's sponsor. It's nicotinamide mononucleotide, a derivative of the B vitamin niacin, which is known to dramatically improve health and longevity, serving as a precursor to NAD+, a compound that plays a crucial role in energy production, muscle regeneration, metabolism, and gene expression in the body. NMN works by replenishing NAD levels, which naturally fall at a rate of about 1% per year. It's the powerhouse of your cells for rebuilding. A 50-year-old person, for example, has about half of the NAD they had in their youth. And if you want to keep those levels high and not just fight for obesity, but to maintain your aerobic capacity and prevent age-associated diseases. And the FDA, they're trying to keep it away from us because a healthy, strong population is hard to control. You gain muscle, lose fat. It's anti-aging. Even my personal skin is improving since I've been taking this stuff. And it's been about a week. The FDA wants to change the status of NMN supplements to be classified as a drug so pharmaceutical companies can control it. And it's not based on safety or efficacy. They want to corner the market and make money from you, basically, or take it away from you. That's why I think right now you should get it while you still can. It's Black Forest Supplements, today's sponsor, NMN, 1,000 milligrams, and it can help you do that. They have an exclusive offer for you if you just go to our link in the description or pinned comment. Then for the next 48 hours, you can buy 2 and get 1 free, so stock up now while you can. The moment Walz was most likely referring to was when Musk joined Trump on the stage in the Republican presidential hopefuls' highly anticipated return rally to Butler, Pennsylvania. Yeah, now, I don't know if we can zoom this up a little bit. It wasn't that bad. I mean, he just jumped. It was literally a jump for joy.
And his rocket company is the only reason we can now send America astronauts into space.
Oh my God, it's a threat to democracy. The man jumped on stage twice and was excited. He showed emotion. No, I'm all right, buddy. My dog came over like I'm dying. He's like, "What's up, bro? You good?" "I'm good, buddy." He's like, "What are all these strange noises coming from you?" As Walz's insult makes its rounds on social media, the Minnesota governor's extensive ties to Chinese Communist Party officials have come under intense scrutiny following a new investigation that reveals previously unknown connections dating back to the 1990s. Daily Caller reported that in February 1996, while working as a high school teacher in Nebraska, Walz welcomed a delegation of Chinese officials into his Alliance High School classroom. This delegation, initially described as educators, included at least 2 confirmed members of the Chinese Communist Party, according to the government records reviewed in the investigation. The visitors were affiliated with the Guangzhou Institute of Physical Education, which has been identified as a member of Chinese influence and intelligence service. Oh, you mean Tim Walz might be involved with the Chinese government? Oh, color me shocked. Joe Biden. This from Nick Sorter. Kamala Harris just openly admitted she's pushing for mass amnesty for illegal immigrants and will refuse to deport them. That means they'll have 20. Remember when they said all these immigrants coming in it's not replacement votes. It's not bringing them into to vote. You know what you're saying is completely wrong. Well, they're all here now. So, hey, let's get them to vote, everybody. Let's get this going. Chop, chop. God, they look you in the eye while they're doing what they're going to do, what they accuse you of. They do. They look you in the eye. They do it. And they go, "We're not doing it. You're doing it." You know, that reminds me of Family Guy episode. There was a Family Guy episode where Peter gets on the elevator and there's a man already on the elevator and the door's closed and Peter farted. And then he looked at the guy, and the guy looked at him very uncomfortably, and Peter said, "You farted." I mean, it's literally that. And almost half the country's like, "Yeah, I'm good with this. I'm good with this." Mass amnesty for 20 million people.
Right now, we're talking about border security, and there's no Democrat talking about pathway to citizenship, and immigration relief, and the benefits that migrants bring to this country.
Oh, but there's no question that migrants bring. America is a country that was built in part by immigrants.
But people are concerned about their TPS, their DACA, we're talking about mass deportations.
I'm not talking about.
What do you stand on mass deportations? What's your stand there?
We need smart, humane immigration policy in America that includes a pathway to citizenship.
There it is, pathway to citizenship. So if you're a blue-collar worker, here it comes. Because these are not doctors and engineers they're bringing in, and you know it. And so these are all the viral clips that are being passed around today, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. This is from Benny Johnson. Kamala Harris compares President Trump to the Austrian guy in a smear campaign. This is the same rhetoric that led to 2 attempts on his life, the most evil, corrupt administration. So she held this press conference. It's literally a 3-minute press conference where she came out and said, "This is unacceptable. He is all these things. Goodbye, everybody."
Learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within.
Okay, we're gonna live debunk. Number one, the person, the general that she's talking about, he got fired by Trump. He got pissed off, and all he's done is attack Trump for the last 6 years. That's all. So that's this general. There's no other witnesses to this statement other than this general who hates Trump. Could he be lying? Yeah. And the families that were in the room when he said this statement took place, the families have all come out and said it's a lie. So you've got one guy spreading this lie, and then you've got, I think there was 3 or 5 people of the Gold Star families that said, no, he's lying. Trump never said that. And what's the media do? What's Harris do? Well, we're going to publish this like it's fact. We're going to just unsubstantiate it. Why? Because they're in desperation mode. They're in deep, deep panic mode. But they've got a problem. If Trump really said this, yeah, it would ruin his presidential run. I think a lot of people would find it highly problematic. But there's a problem. For the last 8 years, you've literally called Trump Hitler, Orange Hitler. He's worse than Mussolini. He's worse than Stalin. He's because it started out, Trump has some ideas kind of like Hitler. And I'm sorry for you YouTubers. I can't say that word repeatedly or this video will get nuked. He's a little bit like Hitler. He has Hitler-like policies. He reminds us of Hitler. He's Hitler light. He's kind of like Hitler. He is Hitler. He's worse than Hitler. You've been doing it for 8 years, man. It's on numb ears. I don't think this is going to land. I don't think it's going to stick. People know who Trump is. People know you lie. The only people that will be like, oh, he's even worse than we ever thought, are like the Democrat lefties that believe in this crap anyway. But do what you got to do in panic mode there, Democrats.
And even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear.
He was talking about the deep state. He said, we've got enemies within. He was talking about the deep state and the unelected bureaucracy that is destroying this country. Most likely her puppet masters. That's who he's talking about. Whoever's pulling her little strings. That's who he's talking about.
Here about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans.
Trump is, by the way, don't forget Trump has done more. Now, people disagree with me on this, but and some people don't like the fact, but Trump has done more for the Jewish citizenry in Israel than most presidents ever had. He's done a lot of stuff for the Jewish people. I know many of you don't like that, but he has. So calling him this is stupid. And to me, it's maybe it'll work on some people. I don't know, but when you try, you have two choices: either get in the mud with the pigs and roll around, and everybody lies about everything, or you try to have some integrity. You try to tell the truth. You try to do the right thing. You don't always accomplish those, but at least you try to come from the right place. Or just, we're just going to lie. We're just going to make stuff up. In this little speech she gave, she also said he's going to be a dictator he said he's going to be a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. That's from his quote of, I want to be a dictator for the day, just day one. And I'll close the borders. And what else did he say? I'll close the borders and I'll do something else. Oh, I don't remember the second thing. Shame on me. Anyway, he said, I'm going to close the borders. I'm going to do something else. And then I won't be a dictator anymore. I just want to get that done. That's what he said. Since then, it's been he wants to be a dictator forever. Lies. They can't help themselves. The bloodbath quote. Oh, if China and Mexico can bring in all these cars, the American manufacturing for cars it's going to be a bloodbath. Like the American car companies aren't going to survive. He said if he doesn't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's so tiring. All they have is lies. And you can point this out to people, and this is where you run into trouble. Remember earlier on, I talked about demoralization, falling into your rabbit hole, falling into your tribe, not listening to the rest of the world around you, right? I mentioned that. Only the educated are free. Only the educated are free. We still listen. We don't like what they're saying. What they're saying is absolute BS, but we're listening. The other side doesn't listen anymore. The other side is gone. They're demoralized. They're just gone. So this is a reporter. Let me see if I can find his name. A journalist, Mark Halperin. This is journalist Mark Halperin. He's not a Trumper. He's not a lefty. He doesn't really get into the politics so much. This is what he thinks of the election and how things are going so far. Now, this is 7 minutes. It is a little bit longer. I don't think I'm going to play through the whole thing. Maybe just a minute or two. Let me see if I can whack this up to 1.25 speed so we can get through it a little bit faster. But I do want you to hear what he says about what's going on with the early voting so far, because I think this is quite important for you guys to hear that are a little black-pilled, that maybe need a little boost for your day.
Ralston is the David Broder of the Silver State. He's just been there forever. He's a great reporter, and he understands how to read the early vote. Let's put up what John Ralston wrote overnight about the early vote in his state. Okay. All right. A little hard to read, but we wanted you to see the chart here. It's pretty easy to explain. The Clark firewall, that's Clark County, where Las Vegas is, where the vast majority of the state's population is, has all but collapsed. The Democratic usually have a huge lead there, 4,500 votes. The rurals are overperforming their share of the electorate. And he says, you can read this, and it's linked in my Substack. It's too soon to call it a trend, but this was a huge day for Republicans. They are ahead now in Washoe County, too. A few more days like this, though, and the Democratic bedwetting will reach epic proportions. As we said yesterday, don't overread the early vote, okay? It can change. We don't know exactly who's casting these ballots, how they're voting, etc. But every analyst I've talked to in the last 24 hours, including people who speak publicly, say, if this continues, Donald Trump can't lose because the Democrats can't possibly do well enough on election day. So
that's key right there. I think that's very important. We're getting enough early mail-ins that if the mail-ins continue at this rate, it is going to be too big to rig. It is going to be too big to rig. Either that, or it will be so apparent and so obvious that everybody will know. And the legal and the lawfare and the rest of it it'll be obvious enough. And I think that's a key takeaway, that if early voting and day of voting, if it's following this trend, there's no way that they can overcome that. And that's what we needed. That's what we needed. I will tell you, gentlemen, this. Please, all of you, go vote. I'm not going to say who you must vote for, but please go vote. This is a big one. I really do feel this will shape the country. This is my stance on it. I don't know what yours are. I don't think any lefties listen to me anymore. You're bringing in Trump. You got Vivek Ramaswamy wanting to tear apart the teachers union because we're dumping billions of dollars into it, and our students can't even pass the 5th grade reading and math levels in many areas of the country. So you got Vivek Ramaswamy wanting to tear up the teachers union. Then you got Musk coming in, and you saw what he did with Twitter. He got rid of 80% of the employees, mostly feminists and the fact checkers and the marketers and all the rest of it. Got rid of 80% of it, kept 20% of men that wanted to work long hours and be engineers and bust their butts to keep the company going. Twitter's doing fine. So if he can do the same thing for the 430 some odd departments we have in the government that are just mucking things up, and all these giveaway jobs that, these people get these pensions and get these ridiculous salaries for doing God knows what. If he can clean that up, that might balance our budget enough. Then Trump with the tariffs and the taxes and then ramping up energy production, we might pull out of the tailspin. Or you get Harris, which is 4 more years of Biden, but now the cruise control is set to 160 instead of 120. I genuinely feel that. Oh, and the biggest one, the one I'm most looking forward to, RFK coming in and cleaning up our food. There's a reason why we get fat. There's a reason why we got these microplastics in food and all these dyes and all this seed oils and things like that. And it's making us sick. It's making us sick. It's honestly, And I swear this is true. I wanted to get thinner, yes, but I also wanted to cut my addiction to sugar. I wanted to get away from the seed oils. My dudes, when I woke up sometimes in the morning, you know, when you go, oh God, I didn't get any sleep. I feel bloated. I feel like crap. I was feeling like that every day. And since I've gone to like a meat and egg diet and then fasting, my energy levels are nuclear. I'm up working at 8:30 or 9 a.m. to find stories. And by the time I chop all this up and upload it to the internet and get all that done, you'll notice most of my YouTube posts now are going up at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, midnight. That's how long it takes me to edit and do all the stuff I got to do. And then my wind down time is from midnight to 3 a.m. I wake up at 9 a.m. and I'm like, let's go, baby. No alarm. My eyes just open up. And I'm not being a proponent of fasting or anything right now. I am, but what I'm saying to you is getting these poisons out of your system. The inflammation, my joints feel better. My skin looks better. I feel renewed. RFK wants to come in and clean up food to where you can still eat McDonald's fries. Now they're made in vegetable oil. They used to be made in beef tallow. You know, the things that if you just had a French fry with a little bit of salt and beef tallow, that is as healthy as you can get for a French fry. But you look now and they got 30 ingredients just in frickin' French fries. I really want RFK to clean up our food. We've got an obesity problem. It makes you feel bad. It messes up your endocrine systems and the hormones. There's so much good that'll come out of this. All right, I'll shut up and let him keep going.
So, Sean, tell people how you view this data now. We've got one more day in the bank. Every state is either bad for Democrats or not good for Democrats. How are you reading it?
I mean, like I said, I've spent cycles on my heels trying to explain the cannibalization of election day voters. I had Seth Keshel on the show last night. You've had him on before. We went through the data. It is unbelievable. Like, it's almost too good to be true on our side. So I don't want to get giddy or excited. But when someone like Ralston, and just out of context, I mean, Ralston has not been a friend to Republicans over the decades. It has to admit.
But he's mostly an honest broker. He's not
sure,
the right.
I have a different view. But I will say this. When my view, which is what you were asking, is when someone like Ralston has to admit something like this, that's a big deal. And so I feel very, very good about not just Nevada, but I think the folks in North Carolina that I talked to and the folks in Georgia are absolutely giddy.
Yeah. And Nevada, of course, I've said, all my sources have said that of the 7 states, that is Trump's worst. And yet this is what's happening in the early vote. Dan, before you say how you're hearing Democrats are feeling about this, what could be causing this? Besides the fact that Donald Trump went from saying only the devil votes early, what could be causing Democratic underperformance here?
Look, I mean, it's a great question, and no doubt in Wilmington, they are frantically trying to figure that out. I think part of this is, if you look at not just in Nevada, but so far, Democrats are underperforming in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and now we're seeing Las Vegas. And what have we been talking about on here now for, months? Problems with Latinos, problems with Black men, problems with young voters. And so far, it appears that those problems have not been solved.
Now, what's clutch about this? He doesn't mention this. They're having a lot of problems with Latinos, specifically Latino men. They're having problems with Black voters, specifically Black men. They're having problems with young voters, specifically young men. It is men desperately trying to stop what is going on and correct the course of this nation. It is the men trying to save it. I firmly believe that. Not saying there's not a lot of women that are voting for Trump as well, but the Harris campaign targeted the feminists and the baby deleters and the I just want a Black woman. Okay, but that's not enough for a lot of people. So yes, they did lose a lot of women. But when the campaign is like, well, this is a man, and they bring up Tim Walz, it's like, hello. They don't buy in. The Black community and the Latino community, a lot of them are religious, even if it's not openly so. They were raised Christian. They're not in for this LGHD TV bullshit. They're not in for the feminization of men. They're not in for this stuff. I believe it is men that if we can get this election done, if we can course correct, it'll be directly responsible for the overwhelming amount of men that woke up, looked around. Only the educated are free. They educated themselves, and they said, we're headed in the wrong direction. I got to fix this. I know I've heard the news. I know I'm going to get crap for this. I got to fix this.
As you said before, look, there are plenty of campaigns that have gotten off to slow starts, if not lost early voting, that have gone on to win. But when one of your calling cards, one of the things that we've been holding our hat on during these bumpy last few weeks is we have the superior ground game and the get out the vote operation, and Trump has outsourced his, and it's an unproven model. Things like this, give you a little bit of heartburn. And at the same time, Mark, as you said, Nevada is supposed to be, one of our best states. And so it appears that some of our base voters are not very energized right now.
So can I you asked Dan an interesting question, what's causing this? And I think there are three things that I think are causing it. One is there's been a cleanup of voter rolls. In many of these states, which I think has been extremely helpful. Number two, the registration efforts that happen pregame. It's almost like the preseason mattered. Getting folks registered, getting them excited, staying in touch with them mattered. And then three is, I think, the issues and the GOTV stuff on our side. The interesting thing is we've stripped roles in so many ways. Like for a while, Republicans talked for cycles about data and how Democrats had outsourced it and we had kept it internally, and it was a big mistake that they had outsourced it. And there was this big debate about what made sense. And the question now, flips on ground game, which is, did it make sense to allow some of these outside groups to do things that were traditionally done by the party in the campaign? We'll still see. But the funny thing is how many of the roles have kind of switched in the last couple cycles about which party was doing what and the critique that each side had of the other one.
Yeah. Again, we don't know what turnout's going to be like. This is a cycle coming out of the COVID cycle. Lots of things are shaking up. But I'll say again, two things. No one will tell you, no matter how partisan they are, no one will tell you that the early voting data is anything but scary for Democrats so far. And if on election day this trend continues, the election will be over on election day before we know who votes.
The one interesting thing that I'm going to be looking for in the next 14 days is, do Democrats flip the script and start to say, guys, we're behind. If you don't go out and do this, Donald Trump will win. I mean,
I think they will. I think they will. I think they'll do that by this weekend. I think you'll see the Obamas do that.
And that's a very interesting.
And that right there tells you, because this is a post from yesterday, that tells you right there why they decided to pull this. Trump said he appreciates and wish he had generals like Hitler. They're trying to scare the base into voting. Fear is a very powerful motivation. But again, the problem is you've worn that thread very thin because you've been pulling on that thread for 8 years, since 2016. And it's crying wolf. After a while, you cry wolf so many times, nobody listens to you anymore. And I don't think that's going to be enough. And there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know, maybe he really said it. But you know something? My gas is way up. My utilities are way up. I can't afford a house anymore. The groceries are crushing me. Even if he said it, I don't care. I want my bills to go down. I want immigration fixed. I think that is still going to hold and resonate with a lot of people. And let's face it, there are still 10 or 20% of people that don't want to vote for a woman president. I mean, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know who would not vote for a female president. But I think, there's a large portion of people that wouldn't vote for a female president. And so I think that's out there. And I think that matters if we're just being honest about it.
Interesting tactic, because you go into scare mode when you know that you've got a problem. Like, you don't start scaring your voters until you know that.
Well,
I think
the other problem
consistently said they're the underdog, which will be part of that. Dan, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the other problem for the Democratic Party here is, and this goes to what we've talked about a little bit recently with those 3 Senate Democrats in the blue wall states, is, does the party stick together? At what point do other candidates and I keep saying this, do House Democrats break away and say, you need to elect a House Democrats because we would be the firewall against a President Trump and a Senate Republican majority? And, if you start seeing more and more of these bad numbers, I mean, look, they just rushed David Plouffe out to do a round of interviews to calm the nerves. They've been putting more and more kind of senior people out there to say, like, relax. We knew it would be close, but we have abortion and we have the ground game. And if you start seeing more of this, it's, people start jumping ship.
Right. And of course, I'm sure, you should all know that the 3 Democratic Senate candidates in the 3 blue wall states, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Wisconsin, they're all now in danger of losing. And that's a source of extraordinary anxiety and upset within the Democratic Party. They want to save all 3 of those, and they can, but all 3 of those are in danger of losing now. And that's a big.
Now, if you're asking yourself, why do they freak out? Like, we didn't used to go through this. Why did politics become so, oh my God, if they get in, it's the end of the country? I'll tell you why. And this is something I do believe. I know many of you don't. Do I think AIPAC and Israel has many ties into our government that I wish weren't there? Yes. Does Trump have very close ties and good relations with Israel and vice versa? Yes. Is Trump controlled by the uniparty and the dark party here in the United States, the unelected bureaucrats and the rest of it? No. And I think that's what worries them. I won't say Trump is free of puppet strings, because I don't think any politician is completely free of puppet strings. But I will say the ones that don't control him, I think, are money, because he's got that. And I don't think it's going to be the deep state. I don't, again, I think Israel probably has some strings attached here and there, if I'm to be honest, just because he does so much for Israel. And maybe he does it for love of Israel. I don't know, but I can tell you this much. They are scared of him because he can't be controlled. Everybody else, I think, because of either the Bohemian Grove stuff or some other things that they get into, I think they're blackmailed, and I think they can be controlled that way. I just don't. I mean, Trump doesn't even drink. You know, Trump hasn't taken an illicit substance. So he says, but I have no reason to doubt he'd lie about something silly like that because he's said the same thing for 20 or 30 years. I think that they don't have any way to control him. They have no blackmail on him. Because if you think about it, if they really did, the Russia, they would have found something. His bank account ties to this and all the rest of it. You know, they would have found, he's been more investigated than any president ever, and they've had to make things up about him to try to catch him on something. That tells you there's nothing there. There's no there. They're furiously trying, and it's driving them crazy. This is from Mark Today, and this is about the Atlantic story of Trump praising Hitler's generals and all that stuff.
And the point I was making is there's all sorts of things being floated out there. Maybe Jeffrey Goldberg just happened to finish the story 2 weeks before the election. I'm sure Sean will have a point of view about that. I know of one story that's been pitched to a major newspaper and to me, and for all I know to many others, that I don't believe is true. But if it's true, as I said yesterday, it would end Donald Trump's campaign. Just as if the accusations now thoroughly debunked and attributed by American intelligence to Russia about Tim Walz, if those were true, it would end his campaign. What we're seeing in the final days, is a point I was making, is actors who want a certain outcome are on social media and in pitches to reporters, and in the case of the Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg writing himself, are trying to affect the end of the race because they're so desperate to try to pull a Comey. I'm not pursuing the story. I don't think it's true. People in Mar-a-Lago, calm down. All I'm saying is there are people out there pitching stuff. And if it were true, it would end his campaign. But if someone pitched me a story that said Trump is a Martian, that might not end his campaign. People might think that's cool. You get my point. There's stuff like that.
So they're trying to create some smear, something. They're trying to come up with something. That's desperation mode. They've always been desperate to go after Trump. And here's the irony. You know, we just heard Kamala Harris say, Trump wants to lock up his enemies, and Trump wants to use the power of the state to go to people that talk negatively. Well, here's Biden today saying he wants Trump locked up. They always do what they accuse you of doing.
He is talking about doing away with the entire Department of Education. He's talking, he means it. This is not a joke. This is a guy who also wants to replace every civil servant.
Stop selling him to me already. I'm in, Joe. I'm in. Wants to destroy the teachers union? I'm in. Wants to get rid of useless civil servants? I'm in. Stop selling me on it. I'm in.
Go on. Thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able, if need be, if it was the case, to actually physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who...
That's not what all they have is lies. That's not what the judgment by the Supreme Court said. He can't just assassinate people. All they do, that's all they have is lies.
He believes would be a threat to him. I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
He says we got to lock him up, and then he realizes what he said, and he's like, politically lock him up. All right, drag your corpse back into the basement and crawl into your coffin. Remember when everybody said we need to tone down the rhetoric? I'm not going to play this. I hate this chick. All she does is lie. She does the bloodbath lie. She does the dictator lie. And now she says, yeah, I think Trump's a fascist. It's 2 minutes and 45 minutes, or 2 minutes and 45 seconds of your life I won't waste for you. But the press secretary's going on about the same quote about the general and Trump and all that crap. And James Carville, who's a Democratic strategist, he lost his crap. Clinton strategist James Carville claims Trump will arrest men of color if elected. Calls for armed uprising if Harris loses. Now, wait a minute. Didn't they try to impeach Trump for questioning the election? I think I remember that. What was the day of that? There's a date that comes to mind of, January 6th. I remember that. Now Democrats are just coming out and saying, hey, black men, black women, Trump, he'll arrest you. He'll just arrest you. Who's this work on? About 50% of the country. That's rather frightening, isn't it? Where does he get this claim? He's going to arrest you if Harris and then if Trump wins, we need an armed insurrection. That's what he's basically saying. But guys, they're scared. They are definitely scared. They are freaking out right now. We might be in too big to rig territory, and they are very, very scared. Veteran Democrat strategist James Carville, who appeared on national television and warned the American people President Donald Trump is planning to arrest all males of color if he wins this election. Well, see you later. 13 million black men. World's largest prison. We'll stick you in. Where would we put all the male prisoners to make them be punished the most? We'll stick you in Vermont with all the white liberals up there. In addition, Carville, who served as the lead strategist, so stupid. In addition, Carville, who served as the lead strategist on Bill Clinton's winning 1992 presidential campaign, called for leftists to launch an armed uprising if Trump beats Democrat presidential nominee Kamala Harris. If he wins, he's going to say, I told people I was going to do this. I have the legitimacy of an election behind me. And you know what? He will have a point because I do live interviews in a day and I answer 20 questions. 18 of them are going to be about polling. Okay, you've lost your shit. The desperation is just, it smells so good. As early voting gets underway, Republicans across Florida quickly surpassed Democrat turnout. Now, if you remember, Ron DeSantis crushed his opponent by like 20 points in Florida. He won by 1 million votes. Well, that trend's not changing. Republicans are crushing Democrats in Florida. And from the LA Times, they won't endorse presidential candidate for the first time since 2008. So they supported Clinton. They supported Barack. But now, and who else did they support? Clinton, Barack. I think that's it. Clinton, Barack Obama, and I think that's it. Anyway, now they're like, now we're good. And if you ever read the LA Times, they are leftist, woke idiots. But now they're like, nah, I'm good. We're good. Nah, we don't tie our name. Please, for the love of God, don't tie our name to Kamala Harris. That would be no. Wait, where is it?
No.
They're not on board with that. All right, let me check chats, and then we'll get to the next story here.